Greetings, dear subscribers and casual listeners of my channel. In recent years, J.K. Rowling has shared a few decisions she regrets the most. Today, I want to tell you about them. Enjoy watching. 1. The graduation ball scene in the final part of the Deathly Hallows. In 2007, the author of the Harry Potter books admitted that one of her biggest regrets was not including a graduation scene in the final part of the last book. This scene would have given us the chance to learn, for example, that Hermione returned to Hogwarts to finish her studies, while Ron, Harry, Neville, and many other students decided to help the wizarding community deal with the aftermath of Voldemort's reign. Here's what Rowling wrote about this. I felt a huge sadness that I wouldn't write a graduation scene. I felt sad that the book wasn't going to end with that feast scene, the graduation scene. A lot of people felt the epilogue was too sentimental. I think to have a graduation scene on top of what just happened would have been an absurd bit of anticlimax. If the graduation scene had made it into the final version, we would have seen a beautiful moment where the Golden Trio flies away from Hogwarts on Thestrals, marking a completely new beginning for them. A life where there is no more war. 2. We've all been pronouncing Voldemort's name wrong. Did you know that for years we've been pronouncing Voldemort's name wrong? In the original, it should be said as Voldemort without the T sound at the end. J.K. Rowling was inspired by the French language, where mort means death. In French, the T at the end of words is usually silent, so the name should be pronounced as Voldemort, which literally translates to flight from death. However, this subtle rule escaped both readers and actors in the films. Even in the movies, characters pronounce the Dark Lord's name with a clear T at the end. As a result, this incorrect pronunciation became the norm, adopted by the films and translations into other languages. Interestingly, Rowling knew about this mistake but didn't correct it. In one of her tweets, she admitted that she's probably the only person who says Voldemort correctly. The mistake became so ingrained that it's now almost impossible to imagine it being pronounced any other way. This is one of those small details Rowling regrets, as she could have corrected it in the early stages before the incorrect pronunciation became part of pop culture. 3. Florian Fortescue, who died in vain. Rowling has often mentioned that in the magical world of Harry Potter, there are no meaningless deaths, and if a character had to leave the pages of the books, it was for a good reason. For example, she once explained in detail why she had to kill off the much-loved characters Lupin and Tonks, which you can read about in detail here. But there is one wizard who, according to Rowling, died in vain, and she admits this with regret. That wizard is Florian Fortescue. Few remember this character because his role was quite minor. Florian was the owner of the ice cream parlor in Diagon Alley. But if you don't mind, let me remind you of another fact about him. In The Deathly Hallows, the main characters learn of his disappearance, and according to Rowling's original plans, Harry was supposed to find him and learn crucial information from him, which would have helped Harry in the future. You see, Florian was a descendant of Dexter Fortescue, a former headmaster of Hogwarts, and could have provided Harry with vital information about the Deathly Hallows. In fact, it was initially planned that Florian would tell Harry about the Elder Wand and Ravenclaw's diadem. But then Rowling realized that other characters in the story could do this better, and so she had to remove this plotline and, consequently, kill off Fortescue. I seem to have had him kidnapped and killed for no reason. He is not the first wizard whom Voldemort murdered because he knew too much or too little. But he is the only one I feel guilty about, because it was all my fault. 4. Dobby's scenes were cut from The Goblet of Fire. Have you ever thought about how those who only watched the movies but didn't read the books have no idea where the food on the tables in the Great Hall comes from? Thanks to the books, we learn that an entire army of tireless and hard-working house elves works in the Hogwarts kitchen. Unfortunately, the films didn't give this any attention at all. There's no Winky, no interesting dialogues between the characters and Dobby, and no mention of the little hard-working cooks. As a result, important facts like Dobby, not Neville, giving Harry gillyweed during the Triwizard Tournament in his 4th year, or Dobby advising Harry and the members of Dumbledore's army to train in the Room of Requirement in secret from Umbridge during their 5th year, are left off-screen. In an interview, Rowling noted that she really didn't like the filmmakers' decision to remove Dobby and other elves from the 4th part of the saga. This is understandable because there are many examples of Dobby playing a significant role throughout the story, and in the final part, he participates in one of the most important scenes, organizing the escape of the Golden Trio from Malfoy Manor at the cost of his own life. Of course, it's hard to include all the plot lines in a movie, but it would have been great to see more scenes with the bravest house elf in the magical world of Harry Potter. 5. Hermione should have been with Harry. According to J.K. Rowling herself, when she first started writing the series about the young wizard, her original intention was for Hermione to end up with Harry, as he seemed the best match for her, and they had a lot in common. However, I wrote the Hermione-Ron relationship as a form of wish fulfillment. For reasons that have very little to do with literature, and far more to do with me clinging to the plot as I first imagined it, Hermione ended up with Ron. It was a choice I made for very personal reasons, not for reasons of credibility. Interestingly, one of those personal reasons is the fact that the character of Ron was inspired by a close childhood friend of Rowling, while Hermione is a partial reflection of the author herself. 6. New details about Albus Dumbledore's life. Rowling's revelation about the relationship between Dumbledore and Grindelwald caused a huge stir in the fan community. Although this topic is not addressed or emphasized in the Harry Potter books, it garnered a lot of reactions. Fans were divided. Some enthusiastically accepted this news as it added depth to the story, while others outright rejected it or were in complete shock. Later, Rowling said several times that she genuinely regretted not revealing this sooner. In her view, a few more details within the story would have helped fans accept the news more easily. So, when it came time to film Fantastic Beasts, in which a young Dumbledore appears, many thought it was finally time to make his orientation an obvious fact. However, the film's director, David Yates, clearly stated that he did not intend to put any special emphasis on this, and Rowling seemed to support his position that this fact would once again not be given much attention. 7. Aunt Marge's bulldogs. Aunt Marge appears in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban as an antagonist, the complete opposite of Harry. She is Vernon Dursley's sister, just as arrogant and cruel. Marge openly despises Harry, believing him to be ungrateful and lazy. Her beloved nephew Dudley, on the other hand, is almost the perfect child in her eyes. At one point, she even says, "It's just in his breed," referring to Harry's origins. In one scene, Marge sets her bulldogs on Harry. The vicious dogs chase him up a tree, where he is forced to stay for several hours. It was a tense and humiliating moment for Harry, and the scene emphasized Marge's ruthless nature. However, this is where Rowling made a mistake that sparked criticism. Real bulldogs are not aggressive creatures, as portrayed in the book. English bulldogs are known for their friendly nature. They are loyal, calm, and gentle dogs. They get along well with children and rarely show aggression. Bulldogs are more likely to relax on a couch than attack someone. In the books, they were depicted very differently from their true nature. This error soon became a topic of discussion among fans. Many parents noticed that after reading the scene with the bulldogs, their children started to fear these dogs. In one case, a boy refused to visit his grandmother, who owned a bulldog. He was seriously afraid that the dog might attack him, as it did in the book. Parents began writing about this on forums, discussing how literature influences children. Fear of bulldogs became a real issue. When J.K. Rowling learned about this, she was surprised. It was unexpected for her. At a fan meeting, she apologized, saying, "I never thought anyone would take it so seriously. Bulldogs are wonderful dogs. I'm very sorry." This acknowledgement reassured some fans, but the scene had already left its mark. The story quickly spread among fans. It became clear that even small moments could evoke strong emotions. Children are highly impressionable when it comes to what they read. And the scene with the bulldogs, although minor, changed their perception of the breed. Rowling realized that her decision had led to unintended consequences. 8. A fan theory. Fan theories are the magic that keeps a story alive after the book is closed, and the world of Harry Potter has become a fertile ground for such speculations. One of the most mysterious characters that fans theorized about was Albus Dumbledore. His wisdom, secrets of the past, and special connection with Fawkes the Phoenix raised many questions. One of the most popular theories concerned Fawkes. Fans speculated that Dumbledore might have made the Phoenix his Horcrux. This theory seemed plausible. A Phoenix could be reborn, just like souls trapped in a Horcrux. The idea captivated fans' imaginations, was widely discussed on forums, and was considered a brilliant addition to the character of the Great Wizard. But J.K. Rowling was horrified. For her, Dumbledore could never create a Horcrux. She always saw him as someone who atoned for his mistakes, not someone willing to kill and split his soul for immortality. The theory of Fawkes as a Horcrux contradicted everything she had built into Dumbledore's character. Dumbledore never made Horcruxes, Rowling stated firmly at a fan meeting. She was dismayed that fans saw dark motives in her character that weren't there. To her, Dumbledore was a man who struggled with his own ambitions and mistakes, not someone who sought immortality through dark magic. Fans, of course, didn't give up. They continued to defend their theory, pointing to scenes where Fawkes was reborn from ashes or moments where Dumbledore displayed remarkable self-sacrifice. This only strengthened their belief that the Phoenix was more than just a friend and companion. But for Rowling, this theory undermined the essence of her character. She always envisioned Dumbledore as someone who had realized his mistakes and never wanted to follow a dark path again. The Horcrux theory destroyed this concept, which was unacceptable to her. Despite Rowling's firm rejection, the theory continued to live on. Fans didn't stop searching for new evidence in the books. They picked up on strange details, linked Dumbledore's abilities to Phoenix magic, and kept developing the idea. Even after the author's denial, the Horcrux theory didn't disappear. This case shows how far fans can go with their interpretations. Even when the author says no, the world they create in their imagination continues to exist. The theory of Fawkes as a Horcrux is a vivid example of how far such speculations can go. 9. Fred Weasley's death was too cruel. Fred Weasley was the life of the party, and together with his brother George, they always lifted the spirits of not only their family, but also the readers. These red-haired twins brought lightness, humor, and boundless support to the world of Harry Potter. They weren't just comic relief. Their role was to show how important family and friendship are in the hardest of times. Fred, with his joyful personality and sparkling humor, became one of the most beloved characters among fans. When Fred died in The Deathly Hallows, it was a blow fans didn't expect. The laughter he had brought throughout the series suddenly came to an end. His death, which occurred during the Battle of Hogwarts, was a true tragedy. He died with a smile on his face, Rowling wrote, making the moment even more heartbreaking for readers. Losing such a bright and cheerful character who always supported everyone around him was shocking. Fans couldn't believe what had happened. Fred's death sparked a wave of emotions and sharp criticism toward Rowling. Many felt that it was unfair to kill one of the most beloved characters, especially one who always symbolized joy and laughter. On forums, fans wrote that his death was too cruel and unnecessary. The Weasley twins had always been a symbol of hope, even in the darkest moments. The loss deeply affected not only the fans, but also Rowling herself. Later, she admitted that she regretted the decision to kill Fred. In an interview, she said, "It was terrible. I cried when I wrote that scene." She understood how important Fred was to readers, and how painful it would be to lose him. But her choice wasn't random. Rowling explained that the story needed to show the real cost of war. She couldn't avoid tragedies in the final battle. Fred's death symbolized the loss of innocence and carefree spirit that he represented. It was a way to show that even the brightest people can fall in the shadow of war. Fred became a victim of the harsh reality. Though fans were saddened, they understood the logic behind her decision. But this didn't lessen their sorrow. The loss of Fred was a heavy blow, reminding everyone that war spares no one, even those who bring joy. Rowling made sure readers felt the pain of loss alongside the characters. 10. The death of Lupin and Tonks. Remus Lupin was always one of the most tragic characters in Harry Potter. A werewolf, an outcast, someone accustomed to pain and loneliness. His life seemed like an endless series of trials, and fans sincerely hoped that one day he would be rewarded by fate. When Nymphadora Tonks came into his life, everyone finally saw a light at the end of the tunnel. Tonks' love for Lupin was genuine and unconditional. Despite his doubts and fears, she chose him. This romance was a breath of fresh air for fans. Their relationship showed that even in the darkest of worlds, there is still room for love. When they got married, fans sighed in relief. It seemed that Lupin had finally found his happiness. When their son Teddy was born, it was a true triumph. Little Teddy symbolized new life and hope for a bright future. Fans were thrilled. After all the hardships Lupin and Tonks had endured, they deserved to be happy. It seemed like this would be their final chapter. But the happiness didn't last long. During the Battle of Hogwarts, Lupin and Tonks were killed at the same time, leaving Teddy an orphan. This moment shocked everyone. Fans couldn't believe what had happened. Lupin, who had suffered so much, and Tonks, who had been his light, were gone in an instant. Their deaths devastated fans. People couldn't understand why it was necessary to kill them both. They had hoped for a different outcome. A child left without parents, just like Harry once was, felt too painful. The deaths of Lupin and Tonks seemed like needless cruelty. Later, J.K. Rowling admitted that this decision was difficult for her. She regretted their deaths, but explained that it was necessary for the plot. "It's war, and it takes everyone," she said. Her goal was to show that even the brightest heroes are not immune to the horrors of war. Lupin and Tonks's deaths created a painful parallel with Harry's fate. Teddy was left an orphan just like Harry was when he was a baby, emphasizing that history repeats itself. But now Harry became for Teddy what Sirius once was for him. The circle had closed. Despite Rowling's explanations, fans couldn't recover from this loss. Their deaths felt too tragic. Lupin and Tonks became symbols of how war destroys even the brightest lives, adding even more pain to the story. The love story of Lupin and Tonks, despite its tragic ending, will remain in the hearts of fans. Their love was sincere and strong, but war spared no one. This loss showed that there are always sacrifices in victory. On Burr, Severus Snape. From the beginning, Severus Snape seemed like a villain. Cold, harsh, he hated Harry, and never missed an opportunity to humiliate him. Fans were convinced this was a typical antagonist. But with each new book, Snape became more complex. Behind his cruelty, hid deep feelings and secrets that we only learned in the finale. Snape's entire life was defined by his love for Lily Potter. His tragedy was that this love dictated his every decision. He hated James Potter, but despite this, he protected Harry because he saw Lily in him. His loyalty to the Order of the Phoenix remained in the shadows, and it wasn't until the Deathly Hallows that we understood Snape had been on the side of good all along. Snape's death was shocking. Nagini's bite, a slow agony, and his final words. "Look at me." He wanted to see Lily's eyes in Harry. This moment struck fans to their core. Even those who didn't like Snape couldn't help but feel the sorrow of his end. Those who had begun to understand him felt true shock and admiration. But fans didn't accept his death easily. They created theories that Snape could have survived. As a potions master, he could have had an antidote. Perhaps he faked his death. These speculations were discussed on forums, with everyone trying to find clues in the books. But the truth was different. J.K. Rowling confirmed that Snape's death was final. She admitted that it was one of her most difficult decisions. His death was not just the end of a character, but the conclusion of his entire tragic arc. Snape had always been a hero in the shadows, and his sacrifice for the love of Lily became his final act. Fans suggested alternatives. They wanted to see Snape alive as a mentor to Harry after the victory. They dreamed of scenes where Harry and Snape finally find common ground. But this remained a fantasy. Rowling knew that Snape's story couldn't end any other way. For Rowling, Snape was a symbol of the complex and multifaceted nature of a person. He was neither a pure hero nor an absolute villain. His love and hatred intertwined, creating one of the most complicated characters in the series. His death completed his story, but left fans with much to ponder. Thank you for watching until the end. I hope this means you found it interesting, and if so, don't forget to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel.